my advice is just, buckle in.
The Dan York State of Mind program is brought to you at part by Lookout Rhode Island and Takeo Comfort Solutions.
I love the Friday programs because we just kind of let it go. And, depending on who's here with me, it sometimes really lets go. And whenever we have Marianne Sorrentino here, it's the kind of television roller coaster ride that I think you enjoy very much. So welcome in. Nice to have you. Reminder, on Fridays, you see a show that's originated for this evening, but taped on Thursday. We tape 2 shows on Thursday. It's a 4-day work week for 5 shows. Does that make any sense to you? And I always tell you that when the news cycle is moving at such a rapid pace that you may think, well, Dan, didn't you watch the news today? And certainly Washington is moving at such a fast pace. I mean, how many times have I said that? I don't know. It almost is like a cliche now. Or you think that I have nothing left in my repertoire, but it does. It moves at such a fast pace, and the president literally is tweeting and lawn press conferencing and whatever else he's doing at such a rapid pace, and Congress is trying to keep up. We'll regroup on that next week, no doubt. In the meantime, Marianne Sorrentino is writing a new column in the Boston Globe. Major media thing here. Jumped ship from the Providence Journal to the Boston Globe and is writing at least on a monthly basis now. And she's got a very poignant piece, actually, is her first take, I think. We'll talk about that coming up. In the meantime, I remind you of what the president said yesterday around the midday.
They should investigate the Bidens, because how does a company that's newly formed, and all these companies, if you look at, and by the way, likewise, China should start an investigation into the Bidens, because what happened in China is just about as bad as what happened with Ukraine.
Crazy. By the way, your piece is already up, right?
Yes.
It's already up online.
And actually, this was my second piece.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay. The first one that I wrote was it's the first Wednesday, everyone.
Okay.
So the first one was in September, and I'll be damned now if I remember what it was about. But anyway.
Well, we'll talk about your second one
Yeah, we'll
a little
talk
bit
about-
later
that's a
on
good
the broadcast. It's a touching testimony to a great surgeon that you think did it the right way, and I'm sure it's got a lot of feedback. In the meantime, I can't start without asking you, what do you think?
What do I think of that we just won?
I mean, the whole thing.
Well, it's a good thing that they just swore in Mike Pence as the president. Oh, it didn't move that fast. I just, but it could have, between that and now, you just don't know. And then who comes next? Nancy Pelosi, she's not far down the line. If
No.
we can knock off 2 or 3 of these people, we're all set. I don't know. But I seriously have been thinking about, and I think I'm going to write about this. So no other writers out there take this idea, because it's now going to be documented that it was my idea today, at this whatever day it is.
Do you ever stop fighting and being competitive? You're even picking fights before they start, for crying out loud.
No, I never do stop. And, as a feminist, I've learned that, once you stop, you're dead. You stop and you go back to work the next day and there's a guy in your chair. So, no, I never stop. Because the battle isn't over, the war isn't over. Some battles have been won, but the war is not over. I have a granddaughter to worry about.
Well, it could have been a female writer that was going to rip you off. I'm playing. So what is it you're thinking? Your next piece is in response to what I've asked you about in terms of the whole thing.
Yeah, because it's about the president thing. Yeah. Like all of you out there, we have friends that we really love. These are people we've been close to for years. We have a lot in common, and we really care about people. And it's not just like one person or one couple. There's enough of them out there that it's now become an issue in my mind. How long do we think we can pretend that we can really go out to dinner or go to the movies or go to each other's houses and not just at a certain point start throwing dishes and saying, you know what, I really never want to speak to you again. I can't stand this. The guy's a jackass, and if you keep loving him, that's on your head, but I don't want to be here. That's where I am. I don't see how we can pretend that it's okay, because I don't really like hanging around with fascists. And, you know, that's the bottom line for me. And I was, all kidding aside, talking to one of my closest friends of my life from college yesterday, and she's quite religious, Jewish. And we were talking, and I said, you know, what's going on in this country? I said, remember when we were young and we used to say, how did the people in Germany let this happen? And then you woke up and you're letting it happen. And it's not funny, because it's terrifying.
You know, look, first of all, in terms of stealing your thoughts, it'll be a compelling piece when you write that. It's not something, and I'm sure you can understand this because you've been in the business. It's not something that I don't deal with on a daily basis.
I'm sure.
Not just on the old phone lines and, you know, the battles that have been, you know, engaging there, but just in terms of life. And it's funny that you mention this, because as we tape this show, I'll be heading down to my old home ground for my 40th high school reunion. Oh. And I have 12 guys, they're still on the phone, emailing, that we've never left each other. We're like brothers.
Right.
But half of them are arch Trump supporters. And we all kind of know, we all kind of know, without having said it, that this weekend cannot be spoiled by this. But we also all kind of know that at 2 o'clock in the morning, in a hotel room on our 95th beer, that
something may slip.
We'll get into it. We'll go into it, and I'll be the first one to say, you know what my out is? You know what? I do this for a living. I gotta go. Or I change the subject. But it's a tension convention. Yeah. Those folks that are ardent Trump supporters, you haven't seen a little bit of acquiescence to the notion that while programs and policies and reasons why and disruption and all that kind of stuff are what they were looking for, that his comportment is bothering them. That'll be your window to be able to just still be friendly with these folks. I'm sure they got to be there at this juncture. Most are.
I actually had someone say, oh, come on, have you looked at your balance sheet lately?
Well, of course. Well, have you looked at your balance sheet lately?
It's more than about my balance sheet. I mean, if I'm in a concentration camp next month, it's not going to give a. I can't say anything because I understand we have census here, and I said ASS on a show, and that had to be like new things.
You're
but the president just said bull blank.
Yeah. He wrote it. But he's not.
No, he said it on the air.
Yeah.
So that turned everybody, because today on CNN, everybody's saying, well, he said it, so, and then they said it. I'm not saying it.
Did I miss something? Did he actually use the word on the television?
He did. He said the four-letter. I'm not saying it. Bull blank. Then he said the thing about the blank strap.
Yeah, I didn't think that was.
First I didn't know it because I'm old. I didn't know. I'm thinking, oh, and it must be that. But then, and so then I thought of all kinds of.
Oh, it's the athletic supporter. I actually was kind of. I didn't think that was actually. Do you think that's buzzable? You do? She doesn't want to rerun the show and have to bleep it. That's why Anita's called.
She gave me the warning before I came.
But it was funny that the president typed the word that he did on Twitter, as used it, and you know what? Bleeped the strap. I didn't even think that was believable. But anyway.
Let me just say something about that, about the Twitter thing. That's an aside, and it's part of this conversation.
Yeah.
Because whenever you're listening to the news these days, you say, well, why don't you have somebody asking, some real bona fide, national supporter from the New York Times or wherever, saying, well, why do you think the Republicans are so reluctant to say what they know is something wrong? Why are they always so quiet? And then somebody inevitably says they're afraid, okay? And, you kind of dismiss that, but, then you think about it. And so now when I'm on Twitter, because I have a big mouth in general, but I have a really big mouth in print on Twitter sometimes. And sometimes I think that, well, in these times, someday I'm going to have the doorbell ring. There's going to be 2 FBI people at the door, and they're going to carry me off to some hidden concentration camps for big mouths like me. But he said that thing 2 days ago about he not only wants the border secured, now he wants moats, with
He denies it.
yeah, wait a minute, crocodiles and
He denies it.
yeah, okay. So then he put it in the denial thing category. Yesterday he tweeted that now they're talking about moats, but he's got it M-O-O-T. M-O-O-T-S, and I didn't say it. So I wrote, and I said when I did this, this is when the FBI is getting ready to put my address in the GPS, and they're coming over to get me. Because I said back to him, moats, M-O-A-T-S, with crocodiles and snakes in them is what you should take a swim in. Moot, M-O-O-T-S, which is how he had spelled it, is what your presidency is shortly going to be. Quote, dictionary is what you should buy. So I said, they're coming after me for sure now. But if I'm worried about that at this level, imagine how some Republican guy from Iowa is worried about what am I going to do if they put me to a vote for impeachment and then have to send my kids to Canada.
Well, so the final thought on your challenge with your friends. I mean, I would think that, my feeling is to do nothing that advances this concept of civil war that the president repeated on Twitter. And it probably starts at home. All politics are local, and all that is important starts at home. And so, keep your friendships.
No, but wait a minute. I've already had a friend on the other side write to me and say that she wasn't sure that it was going to work out, this friendship, because the abortion issue has been in the news a lot lately, and it's given her more chance. So we're back to that. Now, if she says that to me, I'm not allowed to say, okay, I understand that that's a controversial issue. But what about, and then I can talk about children in cages, moats with alligators in them, and taking health care away from old people. These are all right-to-life issues. And, so the other side shouldn't have the right to do it either. And this is the problem, because now we're both thinking, what am I going to say, and is she going to say this, and is he going to say that? The easiest thing is to just stay home and eat Chinese food by yourself.
I don't know. I don't like the MSG. It just makes me crazy. When we come back, a couple of local issues, some politics of the region, and a note on Marianne's second column. Stay with us.
And the realities that we confront in this country today, that the person that earns the most votes for being president should be our president and the Electoral College. I believe in one of the most pressing issues for my generation here, which is student loan debt.
Joe Kennedy, you're a fan.
I bet he really had a problem with his student loan. The column I originally wrote about this, I talked about how, the last thing that we need to deal with is a spoiled brat with K's embroidered on all his shirts, going after a guy like Ed Markey, whom we can count on. I mean, there's so few people we can count on these days. Leave the guy alone. You have to wait your turn. That's like a basic rule of politics. But they're so self-absorbed, and they're so sure, and they're right most of the time, by the way, because people are just lemmings, that as long as they have the Kennedy name, they can get away with it. And the first line of that column was, when you say a Kennedy, everyone gets weak in the knees. Rhode Island went through this syndrome X number of years ago when Patrick, at that time, flunking out of Providence College and already on drugs, ran for the local legislature and got in, by the way. So, hello. I mean, he's not that bad. And Patrick, God bless him, has gone on to do good things. And at least he's using the Kennedy name now to accomplish something that he knows well and that is really important about addiction, et cetera. But, I have nothing against this kid, but it's not his turn. It's just not his turn. It's not like the guy in there is a bad guy, not a good Democrat, not smarter than this kid is, and doesn't have a foundation to build on in terms of returning after this nightmare that we're living through. If the Democrats can ever get in again, building back,
So what is the field right now? The field is...
What, for that race?
Yeah.
I think there's a third person around somewhere, but nobody gets any attention except for these two. But Markey has been such a gentleman. He hasn't really talked about it publicly. He's just saying, well, everyone has a right to run. And,
Well, the idea of waiting your turn, I'm sure, is going to make most of the people in this audience bristle, because I don't. But I think most people will, because politics has now been viewed as a completely dirty word. I've never felt like it. I mean, if you don't listen, the democracy's gasoline is politics. If you don't have politics, you don't have the democracy, right? So, but the idea that you gotta wait your turn, the fix is in, it's all organized, party politics, all that kind of a thing is part of a disconnect and an aggravation that people have, I think, in a lot of ways because of the disconnect and lack of acumen for how things have worked well so far. Do you hear what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. And, you know, it's true that pecking order and wait your turn are...
Nobody says that anymore.
No, no one says it anymore. However, it's really there. I mean, if you just watch these committee hearings and you see the way these people interact with each other, I'm not going to name names, but you know, there are some people that are in the United States Senate and that are in the Congress, who, when you see them on these guys that, you know, in the different hearings, some of them, they're really dumb. They've been in office for 150 years, but they're really dumb. And then if you know, add to that some other factor that makes people back off because you don't want to insult a fill in the blank, a woman, an older woman, someone with a handicap, someone of color, you know, someone who's just said they were gay and now if you go after them, you're a homophobe. If you add in one of those factors or two or more of those, you really have a silencing issue. But there are people that, you know, have been there too long. I'm not discounting that, or you wonder how they got in there in the first place. But there is something to be said when you have, you know, first of all, Markey hasn't been in that long. It's not like he's been there for 20 years. He hasn't been. This is a good, solid Democrat with respect, with a coterie of connections that are important. We're in this crisis mode now. The last thing we need is this young Turk coming in there and throwing everything up in the air. And even if he gets elected, you say that pecking order is dead. But in the minds of many of the people who are still in power in Congress meaning the U.S. Senate and the Congress, they'll never forget that this kid jumped the line. So even if no one says anything, the next time he's on a committee with a few of these older guys, and they're still there, and women, they'll say, you know, watch out for this kid because he can't be trusted. So it affects your ability to seize power in the full way.
Is there any level of hypocrisy in that between your ardent feminism and a thing I'll just coin here after listening, ageism? I mean, does the kid jumped the ship? I mean, so what is there? Do you see a conflict of principle there?
I don't think that there's any way to avoid discussion of age. I understand that people are, for example, today, the Joe Biden discussion. I think it's stupid because he's only like 3 days older than the president, or however, and Bernie Sanders is older than he, you know, whatever. It's clearly political. But I understand the concern because there are realities, especially
I'm
again.
talking about the reverse age, like
Yeah.
he's too young to, the young whippersnapper too.
You know, the kinds of people that I'm talking about who will say that. Somebody 57 is a kid because they're 78, and they're never.
I love hearing that, by the way.
Yeah, because you're 57.
8.
Is that how old you are, really?
Yes.
I'm 76, and I have more energy than you do.
Want to race?
Well, let's go to break now.
But I get your point. It's interesting. Hey, you had a thought on Federal Hill, real quick. I mean, Federal Hill's going through some problems.
You know, I was part of.
It's a place we all love.
I was part of a group called New Homes for Federal Hill, which was in long before you ever came to Rhode Island, and we sold the first $1 shares. You could buy a share in Federal Hill to help rebuild it, and we built the first one-family ranch houses. There's a few of them behind Holy Ghost Church that you'll see that we built. So I have a long, you know, my grandparents lived there, my mother and father. I'm sad not only about
Another shooting this week.
Stabbing. Somebody got stabbed.
And lost their life.
And
last night, meaning Wednesday night.
But, you know, another time we need to talk about, I'm sad to see all of Providence going to a slow, painful death. The whole city. I came from Mount Pleasant, and I drive through there, and I go look at my mother's house, and I'm grateful that it's still being relatively well kept, but the whole neighborhood is different. You know, we're not far from a lot of homeless people all over the city sleeping on the sidewalk. We have some, but not anywhere near. I just came from Montreal.
Is there a grand solution? Got a minute because I want to talk to you about your piece. Well, is there?
I don't
In your
know.
mind?
There's a whole thing that needs to be looked at about cities and getting older and what we let happen. We don't have time for that now, but I'll come back.
Okay. We come back. A softer touch next.
I said it was all right to say his name.
Your second piece, by the way, Marianne Sorrentino is now read every first Wednesday of the month on the Boston Globe online right now. Of course, they've Boston Globe has entered the marketplace in Rhode Island and is doing some pretty good journalistic work with Dan McGowan and Amanda Milkovich and
Ed
Ed Fitzpatrick. So it's good stuff. We don't have a lot of time here, but you write very, very warmly about a surgeon who died early.
And now I can say, because I just had lunch with his widow today, whom I had never known before. And Ann Palumbo, the wife of Dr. Mark Palumbo, a great surgeon who operated on my husband 3 years ago and really changed his life and mine. And he was the most elegant, kind, committed surgeon that I have ever met. And I started working in the medical field as a manager at the Peterman Brigham in 1963. So I've worked with and hired and fired a lot of surgeons to throw instruments and scream at everyone. That's part of the so-called surgeon's personality. That's their excuse for being maniacs. This man had none of that. He didn't need that. He'd look you in the eye. He was serious, but he had a wonderful sense of humor. He was the most beautiful dresser, but he wasn't a clothes horse. He just was an elegant man. And so this was very sad because he was sick for a long time, but he was very private about it. And then all of a sudden it was a poof, he's gone. And I wanted to convey, and I hope I have conveyed, what a gift it is if you are fortunate enough in your lifetime to have a physician, or if you're a doctor, to have a teacher like this. And Dr. Palumbo had so many kudos that we could say, and he never talked about them. He just did his job. And his wife was telling me today, if she had friends who had gone to her husband for something, she'd say, "How's Patsy?" And he'd say, "Call Patsy." He was never going to talk about, even to her, that she knew. He was perfect. And we've lost him, and I don't know. I guess the guy upstairs knows what the bigger plan is. We don't know, so it's sad. But I told her.
You write elegantly about how you feel about him.
Well, if you die first, I'll write something. I promise you that I'll write at least something is nice about you.
I think that's good.
Now that you're going to reunion, don't worry about dying.
Boston Globe Online, the piece is First Do No Harm, and every first Wednesday of the month. Good to see you, my friend. Thank you.
Thanks.
Final word when we come back. Coming up on the Monday program, we revisit a conversation we had with the chairman of IGT, Bob Vincent. Reason being, we're taking a production day off, and more importantly, the folks from Twin River are actually going to appear on this program next week. So we'll get some answers on the other side of this contentious money grab going on in the state. In the meantime, you have a great weekend. Thanks for tuning in. Good night.